right, and there we go. What's going on, fellow art warriors? Welcome back to another Art Friends stream. It's been quite a while since we've done one of these, but Oliver was nice enough to secure us with another awesome artist who he knows. And yeah, so welcome Kyra to the stream. We're really excited to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. My name is Kyra.
Yeah, so we've got all your info on the banner and everything if people want to check you out, but I will also drop a link to your website in the chat. And guys, as we go on, you know, if you have any questions for Kyra as we talk, feel free to just write them in the chat and we'll kind of ask her as we continue. So today I think mostly what we're going to talk about is your experience in the industry. As we were kind of saying right before the stream, like you've kind of had quite a lot of experience since graduating college and in just like what, a couple years or so, right? When did you graduate?
Yeah, so I graduated spring of 2019, and I started working that fall. My first job after college, I actually managed a cat shelter, which ended up being super useful, just learning all sorts of management and organizational skills, because my following job was a art coordinator, so production job on the Magic the Gathering animated series. So I went out to LA, you know, a few months after graduating, and it just hasn't stopped since then.
That's awesome. Cool. So yeah, we asked you a bit too. I was trying to not ask you too many questions, but you were saying you haven't really done too much freelance stuff. It was kind of like you just got out of college and then you started your professional work. I mean, after the cat shelter thing, right? So yeah, not too much freelance work beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, I started doing a little bit of freelance, you know, just like helping other students out from other colleges that I met on their theses. And, you know, I used to do like some graphic design stuff when I was in high school. But I've been doing quite a bit of freelance, like on top of my other work. So I've been doing like some background art for some just people's personal projects. Right now I'm working on a Kickstarter, like comic projects as a asset texture artist. So that should be coming out sometime this year. But yeah, I mean, it's, and also just like working on personal projects. But yeah, not a whole lot of freelance because I was very lucky to just kind of get into the whole LA scene pretty quickly.
Sure. That's awesome. And what's interesting about your work as well is like looking at your portfolio, you just have a lot of different skills. It looks like you've got your traditional stuff, you've done figure drawing, you know, digital art, animation. So what would you say like your specialty is, if you even have one?
Yeah, well, when I was in college, because I went to college for like just to learn general 3D art and animation, because I didn't know. Okay. It's like you kind of start college, you don't know exactly what you want to focus in, because there are so many amazing options. There are a lot of great job paths, and you know, you don't have to stick to one thing either. And I've always just loved painting and drawing just for fun. So just having that and then learning some more like 3D skills on top of that was really helpful. And then I ended up focusing more on like 3D lighting and compositing, just because it felt the most like painting. I loved the kind of the final stage of making, you know, all the 3D assets look very beautiful. Then I started to get interested in hybrid styles. So like mixing 2D and 3D to make like more unique styles, kind of like Klaus. You know, that sort of thing like really interests me. I think it's gorgeous. But since, you know, working in the field, like my jobs have all been mostly like 2D art related. So like 2D background drawing. Right now I have a junior digimat art job at Lucasfilm animation. So I'm doing a lot of just like more realistic, like painting. So a lot of like rocks and dirt and trees and buildings and just kind of scenery, but way less cartoony. To try to match the 3D style.
So are you still integrating 3D into this process, or is it all 2D?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so this is my first job actually where there is some 3D. So I'm doing a lot of like work in Nuke, like 3D projections and compositing. I haven't gotten into like a whole lot of 3D yet, but I definitely will be soon.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So yeah, before we talk about kind of like how you got some of these jobs, because I'm really interested in hearing that. Like, so if we look at your animation tab, for example, on your website, what did you just do all of the things that go into these shots, or like did you just light these models, or like what?
I'm trying to remember what I have on there.
There's one like the bar scene.
There's one on there that Okay, yeah. So the bar scene I lit and I did some shading for. That was
Okay.
for like an NM school, like online student that I lit for. There's another one on there called Otherworldly Antiques, which was like that was a collaborative project that I did my junior year of college with like a group of 4 friends.
Okay.
So I mostly did the lighting and like concept art,
Gotcha.
a little bit of texturing, but everything else is just me.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, and looking at your digital art as well, you just have some beautiful work, and it's interesting. You have a very distinct sort of style, and it looks like you've kind of always painted in a certain way, but that style kind of just progressed, like as maybe you felt more and more confident, or as your skill increased or whatever. But um, I kind of am interested to know like what you think about style, because that's a question that always comes up. Is that
It
something
does
that
always.
somebody
Everyone
always?
always wants to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I have a little bit of opinion on style. I mean, I think that there's no real like original kind of like style because we're all, it's like music. It's like you have influences and you have people that you look up to.
Hmm.
Um, for me personally, I definitely like my current, like, I don't really feel like I have a current style. It's just kind of what happens. Like, that's what it looks like. And I think a lot of
Sure.
that actually does have to do with like your understanding of the way light works and like because it's like you learn about composition and light and you just structure there's just the basic drawing skills that
Yeah.
really factors into it. But for me, like I've always just I love drawing like swirls and just certain like colors and stuff. I think
Hmm.
it's more of a psychological thing, like the way that I kind of like process the world, the visual, like say
Mm.
like if I'm looking at a scene of like a tree, like my brain processes it a certain way and then puts it down a certain way, kind of without thinking about it a whole lot.
Yeah.
And that's kind of I think where my most basic kind of like definition of style comes from is, and you see like if you look at different artists, it's like you just tend to draw things in different ways, and you can kind of play with it or go against it or try to emulate someone else's style or just experiment. But I think that there is definitely something to like every artist having their own kind of signature, kind of just way that their brain interprets things. But
Sure.
also, people really can, I don't think anyone has to have a certain style. Like, I think variety is really nice, and being able to accomplish different styles is really important. And
Hmm.
animation, especially if, you're drawing, and painting, because it's like ultimately when you're working, you have to be able to hit someone else's style. So
Hmm.
you need to have the skills to be able to kind of switch styles all the time.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think
I,
a lot of that has to do with just knowledge of fundamentals.
Exactly.
yeah.
It's very important.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just
Just quickly,
practice copying.
yeah, quickly bouncing off that. Just who was your like biggest like influences at the beginning? Like, did you emulate certain artists, or were you quite like one artist kind of focused and kind of
Let's
copy
see.
that?
I'm
Really?
trying to think how early. I love the work of Nathan Fowkes.
Mm.
Something I will always recommend is schoolism.com. Just because like you can audit their classes for like $30 a month or less.
Hmm.
And Nathan had like he really inspired me to like get into more of like the whole lighting and color sort of thing. Like he was like when I hear him talk about it, it was like, oh my god, I totally want to do that. And just the way he handles light and texture, I think is really beautiful. There's also an art director called Evan Vera, who was an alum from the college I went to, and he made like a series of like short films, and he art directed like one of the League of Legends like cinematics a few years
Oh,
ago.
cool.
And just like the way that he combined like 2D and 3D art to like create animation, and just he has a very graphic and stylized kind of style, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of like visual language. I just like love it and how cinematic and colorful it is. So I think I definitely got a lot of inspiration from those two artists for sure.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. So, why don't we take a step back and talk a little bit about your journey? Because I think that's one of the most interesting things for an artist to talk about, especially because you're at a studio right now that I assume a lot of artists aspire to be in. Like Lucasfilm is like a big deal, right? And I know there's always stepping stones to these journeys. So let's go back to just the beginning. Like, were you the kind of person that always drew and painted, or was that something that like an interest that came later in life?
Like the weird art kid.
Yeah.
Always. That was my whole life. I just loved it. When I was like 11, I got a chance to like, because my mom was like traveling for basically like her veterinarian trainings. So she had like a conference in Arizona, and I ended up like attending like this adult like plein air acrylic like class or something like in the middle of the desert. Yeah. And that was my first time really like painting landscapes. And it was really early, and I just loved it, and I've just been doing it since.
That's awesome.
Which my family was really supportive, and they took me to art classes and just encouraged me to do it. So that was ultimately very helpful. And yeah, it's just something I've always loved. And I remember, I knew I wanted to do something with art, probably. I don't know exactly what, but I just remember being like, what is actually a viable career where I can at least start out making, surviving, basically, making enough to eat. So that's why I got into animation. And also I loved animated movies. I was the type of person that even the older I got, I still watched cartoons and animated movies. It was always my favorite. So when I went to college, I mentioned, I was more of a 3D generalist, but I also took like a bunch of art classes, just to keep working on those skills. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with it. I always had the dream like, oh, I want to like make my own movies and be the director. Gotcha. But then it's like, you kind of learn that's a lot of work when you're young like that. It's, and oftentimes the schools will have you like specialize, or you end up like just specializing yourself because you end up doing what you like to do the most or what you find interesting. That's really important because ultimately you'll be doing it 40 hours a week. So you have to. For sure.
So what drove you to more of a 3D program if you have more of a background in 2D? Or was it just kind of like oh, I think this might make me more money kind of mentality?
Yeah, that was it when I was in high school for sure. Like, I think, working at somewhere like DreamWorks or Pixar would be really cool because I know you'd make a lot of money. But also, I love the films. Like one of my favorite movies ever, Shrek. Like non-ironic. Gotcha. I love Shrek. That's awesome. And just like something about just like with 3D, you're able to create worlds, and with 2D too, that you wouldn't be able to create with film. Just fantasies and just like putting down abstract ideas and creating something like very real. That's always been really appealing to me. I just love the way it looks. And I thought like, I did like math and science a lot in high school. So, it was kind of combining like all of those interests together because it's a little more technical than just drawing. And I also believe, there's some people that don't want to do their hobby, as their career because it can kind of be a little soul sucking. So kind of having multiple options to choose from, I think as well, can be really helpful.
For sure. I feel like you're a prime example of that, where you're just like, I'm going to just get good at a bunch of different things and kind of see where that takes me, which I think a lot of people are a little bit more hesitant to do because it's kind of scary to like dive into some of these things when all you know is 2D or whatever,
Yeah, and it is great to specialize for sure because the more you do it, the better you'll get. For me, I didn't really know a lot about the industry. I didn't go to an art school or anything like that. I couldn't afford art school. So I went to like a liberal arts school that I could definitely afford a lot easier.
But did you you got an art degree at the liberal arts school, right?
I have like just a Bachelor of Art.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's just Gotcha. The title is not all that important. It's more about the skill.
Did you feel at least the classes you took like had an impact on your learning, or were you doing more learning outside of class?
Yeah, so the school I went to was interesting. It's like one of the most liberal kind of colleges, and where they don't have grades or tests, and everything you do is project based and kind of like you kind of make your own curriculum. And so I learned a lot about how to like make projects independently and like stay organized and stuff. So that was really important. Yeah. It was really important instead of just kind of following someone else's like do A, B, and C to like get to your destiny. Or it's like you kind of have to pave your own way and learn those skills. And so I did an internship at a visual effects company in Boston called Zero VFX. And that was exactly, the skills I learned in college, the independent skills came in use because they asked me to just do my own 3D project.
Oh, interesting.
Basically, they're like, yep, just do it. And, write a proposal, write down how you're going to do it, do the research, and then step-by-step execute it.
And this was in the internship they asked you to do?
That was my task in the internship. And then besides that, it was just coffee runs and picking up people's lunch. And cleaning and stuff, but it was kind of like I had like a few people I could talk to and help me with my project, and then I just made a project. I made like a 3D like alley alleyway, kind of like underwater.
Gotcha.
So I learned a lot about just like, that and some new programs. But so that was really helpful. And then during my thesis, I'll just continue on the timeline, I guess.
Yeah.
But I ended up kind of continuing that where the first half of my thesis, I did, what did I do? I did like 3 different, just full 3D scenes. I did like an interior with different lighting setups. I did like a cyberpunk like cityscape, and then I did like a forest like mushroom house, all in using Maya Arnold, and then going back to kind of like the hybrid styles. I wanted to try something a little bit more out of the box, and just like experiment with styles. I took a lot of inspiration from a film called The Fox and the Whale, which was a lot of 2D background paintings, and then the characters were 3D, but they were composited in a way where they look more 2D. Also, Taiko Studios, One Small Step. I think they presented that at SIGGRAPH a couple of years ago. I remember seeing it and was just blown away by how beautiful. And so I took those 2 films as inspiration, and I kind of made 5 different shots of like this really simple like 3D character with some 3D assets for the backgrounds, and then everything else I painted and then kind of composited in After Effects to kind of try to look more like 2D, like painted.
Sure.
And then after that, like I said, I applied to like 40, 50, who knows how many jobs. I just kept applying for they're mostly lighting jobs. But my portfolio wasn't quite there yet for lighting, I think. I did start, there's a school called Academy of Animated Art, and they focus on a lot of like character lighting. So I did like this online class where I got to like, practice more during the summer after graduating while I was like just saving up money.
Is it alright if I just cut you there a bit, just backtrack a bit, because I think I wanted to hear as well, like, as a student, like, do you feel as a student like you had to have like some kind of technical? Because I know there's a lot of programs out there now. It's just like, okay, you can the flashy concept art or illustration, and did you feel that pressure to learn that, like to have a technical skill to stand out when you were searching for the jobs? So like maybe like texturing artists, it's not, because texturing artists, if I told some of my peers what a texturing artist is, some students wouldn't know. Like
because you guys are more like concept oriented. I mean, I think it never hurts. I think like, because you can make some really amazing like structural concept art a lot easier if you know how to do just basic 3D modeling, even in Blender. Just learn it for free. And I think, it's always a useful skill to have. Like, if you say you know a little bit of 3D or something like that, that'll always be a plus on your resume, whether you use it or not. But also, if you're really more focused on the illustration art side of it, you don't have to. But I think it can help, especially if you're going for more realistic, like kind of like video game style, like concept, where it could come in handy.
Yeah. Were you ever interested in getting into games at all, or were you strictly more like, I want to do film stuff or animation stuff?
I mean, even still, like, I'm kind of like, maybe I should get into games. Ultimately, like, I think I was always mostly focused in animation, but, I have a lot of friends that are into games, and, the more, like, I think I'm more into, like, more like, unique, like, indie kind of like artsy games. Like I just played one called Inside, and
I haven't played that yet, but I played Limbo.
Please play it. It's so pretty.
It's
just like more of a story. I'm more into like the story driven, like because I'm bad at video games. I didn't play them as a kid, so I love like Journey and like Gris, where they're just more. I would totally work on something like that. That's more like just like cinematic and artistic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
But so I think they're cool.
I wanted to ask
too.
go
ahead.
Because you briefly brought up SIGGRAPH, and I actually had a friend in college who went to SIGGRAPH, and she secured a job at EA from going to that convention. Did you get any leads from going to these conventions, or how do you feel like they helped you?
So I did the student volunteer 2 years in a row. One in Vancouver, one in Los Angeles. Vancouver's beautiful, by the way. It's great. I love it. Anyways, the first year I won, I really just wanted to learn more about the industry, make some friends, make some connections, and get inspiration for my thesis. Those were my goals of going there, and it was perfect for that. the second year I was after I graduated, it was in Los Angeles. I was trying to network as much as I can.
Sure.
That was my primary goal. I went to the job fair. I got an interview at Real Effects through
Okay.
it. It would have been for the Scooby-Doo movie, but
cool.
the interview didn't go well, so they never heard back from them or anything. And they were interviewing a ton of people. But the artist Evan Vera that I had mentioned, that was an alum and worked on those short films in the League of Legends thing. So I had actually, this is also a really good piece of advice, is always reach out to people you admire as well, not just from a distance, because you never know who will actually help you out or reply to your email. Because this guy ended up being so kind and generous. He kind of became a little bit of a mentor to me. We did a few Skype sessions just about my thesis, and he helped me a lot just in terms of like giving me art critique and inspiration. And so when I went to LA, I knew he lived there. I just hit him up and he was like, yeah, like, let's get tacos. Like, if you can dip out a SIGGRAPH for like an hour or something, like meet up for tacos. And I didn't even know what project he was working on. And he brought me to the studio he was working at. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. I would love to work on something like this. And the next day I get a text like, do you want to art coordinate?
That's awesome.
So,
That's so
always,
cool.
It wasn't directly through SIGGRAPH, but it was from going to LA, and keeping in contact with, the people you network with is so important. More than just asking for help, but, checking in on them and kind of just like, saying that you like their stuff, and, it's important to stay in touch.
For sure. I think another interesting thing that you mentioned as well was just like you had these very clear goals of what you wanted to accomplish at the conventions themselves. I feel like a lot of people just attend just to attend sort of thing, but if you're going to spend money to go to one of these places or have to fly or whatever, it is important to, maybe if you don't even actually end up achieving every single goal you have, at least having this in mind, I think is super important to just like get to where you want to be. Otherwise you're kind of just like blindly going through the motions. And I think that's just really interesting that you just brought that up, like, oh, well, my goal for this one was this, this, and this. My goal for the other one was this and this. And it sounds like more or less you kind of, took your own advice and, did the thing. So that's really awesome. Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with just going in blindly too, especially if you're younger and you don't, or if you just don't know, if you just want to go just to learn, what is any of this stuff, there are people there that are volunteering or just attending. They don't, they don't have any experience, or they're first year students or something, and they're just going to go, and there's nothing wrong with that either.
Sure, but I mean, even a goal of like I'm gonna walk away from this like trying to have learned this thing better or whatever, having some sort of thing in mind of what you're trying to achieve, I think is always a good way to go about it. So you went to a bunch of conventions. You ended up getting this job basically through a friend that you ended up making. Oh, I want to talk about how did you guys meet as well?
Oh, we Lightbox Expo of 2019.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the first one. The first ever one. I was so happy.
Wait, no, we followed each other on Instagram a couple years before. I don't know how. I think just Instagram. You follow people, like other artists. Yeah. Instagram's a very nice community for concept artists. And then I think like we were like, oh, you're a Lightbox too. We should meet up.
That's awesome. Do you find social media being important to having gotten any of these jobs, or is social media something you keep up with?
Yeah, the recruiters do look at the social media. Also, just like community-wise, there's like this awesome kind of plein air painting community based out of LA and San Francisco called Warrior Painters. Okay. And now they have a Discord open and like an Instagram, and they have challenges, and it's all online because of COVID. And so like anyone from around the world is encouraged to participate, and they have like weekly sessions where everyone kind of paints a similar topic. And they have challenges and stuff where you like exchange art or have to like paint something every day. And so I think that's really nice. And, these are all people that are art directors and background artists, concept artists. So, I mean, that's great connection making. I have had people from like bigger studios just like find my work, or I'll find their work, and, you can message them, ask questions. I've had some people from like Pixar and Blue Sky Studios, like give me a ton of advice. Just on my work when I was a student, because I would kind of, find them on there, or they would find me, and I would email them. And someone gave me like a 45-minute video critique. He was like a art intern at like Pixar at one point, and then was at Sledgehammer Games. And that was just, people are so kind and generous. And it's like, you know, I want to be the person to, you know, start doing that and giving back to the community and stuff. Because it's just like, you know, artists really, there's no point in being competitive. It's like you build each other up because y'all need each other.
Yeah.
In the end.
That was one of the best advices that was ever given to me was when I was in college, this guy I met like was doing that kind of thing, just like going out of his way to be like, hey, you're a young kid. I'm going to help you out. I'm going to give you this advice, whatever. And I kind of like felt guilty at a certain point. I was like, I can't do anything to give back to you. He's like, dude, you just have to, you know, give back when it's your time. And I'd like to think that I'm at that point now where, you know, that's part of what I'm doing with my career. And I think that's an important thing to know, is just to kind of like meet people and, you know, be kind to each other and help each other out. Because you're right, we are in a community, we are in a certain sort of niche, and it's important to, you know, push each other up. So
exactly. On that note, I will do a little tangent. I recently completed a mentorship program with women in animation.
Cool.
They have these circle programs, also one-on-one programs, and they match you with like, I don't know, like 10 or so other mentees with like a mentor. My mentor was Alyssa Zarate. She's like a matte painting supervisor at Sony. Cool. And she was just like so kind to everyone, and she was just like, I don't know. I mean, first of all, she was an amazing artist with amazing advice, especially for women. And I would totally recommend that program to anyone, because you know, we all lift each other up and became friends, and you know, tell each other when something bad happens at the workplace or during an interview or something.
Sure.
So just really having some sort of community and you know, support system is really great.
Is there a website I can link people
to?
So
just like Women in Animation, I can send it to you afterwards.
I'll put that in the description or something. But this is something that Oliver and I keep talking about, because obviously it's just us two guys, and a lot of the people we've interviewed have also been guys, and it is nice to have a woman's take on the industry. Is there any other sort of advice that you feel like you could give as a woman to, you know, other potential girls that are interested in this sort of industry?
Oh, there's a lot, but definitely, you know, stand your ground, apply to everything. Don't think that you're not good enough to apply to a job, because all the men are also applying to those jobs. And, you know, just it's all about like standing up for yourself, knowing your worth, not taking a lower pay. Just really, oh, hang on, my computer just did something weird. Am I still there?
You're still here. Yep.
Yeah. I would definitely encourage people to check out some of the panels with women in animation, for sure.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. Okay, I just had another question I was trying to just think about. Oliver, do you have any questions? Sorry, I gotta reset my brain really quick.
No worries. Yeah. I think just back in tracking about art coordination, because that to our viewers,
that's what I wanted to ask about. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to ask that question, Nick? Or?
Oh yeah, just like what does that exactly mean? Like what were your responsibilities in that role?
So it's kind of like I guess a lower mid-tier like production job. So it's kind of like a step above like PA. It's more specific. So on our team we had a script coordinator, a storyboard coordinator, and art coordinator. So it was kind of like I was also kind of assisting the art director, just, you know, making sure he stayed on track and getting him whatever information he needed. But it was like setting up meetings, taking notes, passing things back and forth, making spreadsheets, and documenting all the artwork and the assets that we would get in from the different studios, and just kind of making sure like it's kind of keeping the artists in check, and, you know, coordinating between them. So it was it was very stressful, like the first month, because they didn't know what I was doing.
Sure.
But I got a lot of help, and you know, and it ended up being really fun and a great learning experience, because I got to see like the whole pipeline pretty much.
Yeah, I was gonna say that must have been a great entry, just to kind of meet a lot of different artists and like the whole aspect of pipeline, because a lot of the time we don't get to see what the next person in the pipeline might be doing, or what kind of stuff. So I think that's
it's a great thing to do if you know you want to get into the industry but don't exactly know what you want to do, or if you're having trouble getting an art job, and if you're not ready yet, or if you're just not having good luck, like it's a great way to just get in the industry, get your foot in the door, and then you end up meeting people. And you know, yeah.
So were you doing much art yourself, or was it
No,
more just
no,
managerial?
it was just production.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
yeah, but then I ended up switching projects. I think around like January, February of 2020, last year, about a year ago. And they had me as a background artist on like a couple other shows that the studio was working on, just like small ones. And then because we just switched projects, and so I ended up full time just doing background art for one of the shows for quite a long time until like September, October.
Nice. And then, so let's maybe transition towards the Lucasfilm studio. How did you go about securing that job, or was it just like an application?
It's funny. So, so I had applied for. They had like an internship that they had posted when I was right before I graduated college, and I just applied for that. And I ended up interviewing. I think I was like second in line for it or something like that. It was like pretty neck and neck between me and the other person, and it was like they're amazing interviews. It's a fantastic little team on their lighting team, and I didn't get it. I was really sad, but you know, I just went on and was like, oh, you know, maybe sometime. That seems like it would be a really like fun place to work, and they're doing some unique stuff over there. And then another job came up, and I was like, when was it? In the fall. I had just started like another job at Ingenuity Studios. I was a background artist for like some Dolly Parton music videos.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Just their Christmas videos. Just like that was like a 2-month gig. But I had just started, so I was like, oh man, like I just started this other job.
Yeah.
And like this other job from Lucasfilm came up, and it's literally like it's the perfect job for me.
Yeah.
You know, it just sounded so much fun and like very similar to my interests. And so I applied anyway, and you know, they were like, yeah, you know, we remember you. And the interviews were really fun, just really, just fun conversations about the work, and you know, and they were like, yeah, you know, well, we'd be willing to take you in like later since you're still working. Like, we're not really getting going until like December, January. So I started in December.
Gotcha.
So it was kind of like, you know, if you don't succeed the first time, like they still know you, keep in touch with them. I had messaged one of the folks like a couple of times just to try to keep in touch or follow them on Instagram or something, and so they just so they remember you. You know?
And it sounds like in general, just like making a good first impression is also super important.
Exactly. Yeah, always keep your guard up, and you know, if it doesn't work out the first time, it's way more likely if the studio knows you already. It's like, you know, they already know they can trust you. They don't have to go through the whole process of, you know, getting to know you again.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's a really cool story. Cool. So I also am interested to see how do you feel doing this remote work as opposed to being in the studio has changed, or are there certain things you're kind of having to do that you didn't have to do before, in terms of just like communicating and getting the work done?
It's very mixed, for sure. I mean, being in the studio is awesome because it's like it's so creative. You make, you know, you don't always make friends with your coworkers, but when I was at Octopi Studio, the first one I was at, like we were all super close, and we would play Magic at lunch and go get, you know, food, and just like you know, we'd go out together as well, like hang out outside of work. And we still keep in touch. It's you know, we became like a cute little family.
That's awesome.
But, you know, and it's not really like that remote, you know, it's like you just kind of report to the people and you can joke around and, you know, stuff. Because my job at Ingenuity, it was like a small team of like 4 people. So it was a little bit easier because it was smaller. My team is maybe, I don't know, like ranges from like 6 to 8 people, like on the daily basis, which is still pretty tiny. So it's pretty tight knit. But it's like, of course, I wish I were there. I would get to know everyone better, and hopefully that happens. It might not. I'm not really. No one knows.
So do you guys just have to kind of... I was just going to say, do you guys just like sit on Discord all day to kind of like at least kind of be in touch, or maybe you're not allowed to talk about how this works?
No, it's fine because I've done remote for 3 different studios.
Gotcha.
You know, everyone does it. It's all Zoom pretty much. So, you know, my job at Octopi, we did just dailies like twice a week. pretty
Sure.
much. Just that was the only meetings we had.
Mm-hmm.
Ingenuity, we had dailies every morning where we would just go over the work from the day before, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you do the work, you hand it in the next day. For this, it's a lot more meetings. So we have dailies every morning at 11,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have like a check-in kind of session in the afternoon. And then whatever, there are other meetings too, but it's a lot of meetings where you just go over stuff, talk about the plan, ask questions. And then besides that, we use Slack a lot. All three places have used Slack to communicate really easily, or even like Google Chat.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of perks to working remotely too, and I think that is animation. It's an extremely, or games, or whatever, as opposed to just like film. It's extremely fortunate right now because the animation industry is absolutely thriving.
Yeah.
Because it's able to keep going. It's like every film place, they're shut down. They can't film. Whereas animation, it's like everyone is content to work from home. They usually give you equipment to work with, or you're able to like remote into a desktop at the office, which is what I've done a lot.
Interesting.
And for people that would prefer not to go into the office, if they concentrate better at home, if they have kids, if they would rather not live in Los Angeles. If they have elsewhere to be, you can totally do it, and it's doable. And this is proven just in terms of accessibility as well. If you can't go into work, it makes it easier on your life. It just helps a lot. And ultimately, I think like there are definitely pros and cons to both. Like I've enjoyed working from home because it's like I get to take care of all my chores and spend time with family more, and which is really great. And kind of take breaks. I can go outside and walk in the woods and stuff instead of just concrete LA. But I think that it won't go back to how it was before. I think a lot of places are kind of looking into their options to how to allow people who want to work remotely, like work remotely.
Sure.
Or even even going, like a lot of places may end up going in like twice a week instead of 5 days a week or something like that.
Yeah. Because I do remember when I was applying for jobs like right after college, like a lot of the studios were like must live in X city in order to even apply. And I imagine a lot of that stuff is changing right now. And that kind of makes it a little bit more open for opportunity, especially like for people that, like, I was in Pennsylvania and there was like nothing obviously in Pennsylvania, but maybe people now can get jobs in LA from PA without having to travel across the whole United States. So
I think it's really exciting, and it definitely opens up like the doors a lot to people who might not be able to afford to move somewhere or not want to, or international people. So I think it's that's the one part of COVID that I'll say is like a positive.
Sure.
thing.
It's just kind of forcing everybody to just think a little bit differently and think outside the box. So.
Yeah. Plus, some people really concentrate better at home. You get more done because, also you don't have like the office chatter, and, meetings don't take as long. And you don't have to commute. So you actually do end up getting more done. At first I had a really hard time concentrating. So like I definitely wasn't getting as much done as I would have, but I've learned.
You just get used to it after a while.
You get used to it.
Yeah. No, it's the same for me because like when I was living in PA, I would have my business partner come over to work on the game stuff with me. And it is one of those things where when you have somebody else in the office that you can just be like, hey, can you look at this thing really quick? Like certain things move so much faster. But like you said, it does make a difference when you can kind of just like hunker down and just get in the zone. It's so much easier to get in the zone when there's not as many distractions. So I am really interested to see how this does shift our industry and, what practices people do end up taking later on, because I do think a lot of people do wish that they could work from home more often. But, I at the same time, for quite a while, I was like, because I've always done this work from home sort of thing, it does get a little lonely, I do have my cats. I have my wife that comes home, after work. But during the day, it's kind of just like I found myself talking to my cat more than I was talking to people. So I
think some sort of balance or just choice, because some people don't want to work at all from home. I think if they can figure out some sort of balance, and obviously it will be like a case by case basis, like studio by studio.
Of course.
But I'm excited to see what will happen too.
Yeah. Cool. So can you tell us much about what your responsibilities right now are and what the project is?
Yeah. So at the moment, I'm working on the Star Wars Bad Batch series. They just
Awesome.
announced it. It's kind of like a not a sequel, but kind of like an offshooting of like the Clone Wars series. That they did like the 7th season of Clone Wars very recently, and it was very beautiful. So it's kind of like a similar vein as that. I think they have a trailer for it too, but yeah, basically like my role is like a kind of a more experimental role, a junior digimat artist, which it's like, what does that mean? So it's kind of like a version of like matte painting, which you see a lot in VFX. It's kind of the term for like background art, and feature animation. You have like the matte painters that they paint or 3D model or some combination of all the sets in the background, like the vistas and the scenery in the background, which is something I love doing in my own way. But basically, it's like you take. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to ask, like, coming from a technical kind of standpoint, like, because you've had to kind of adapt your styles a bit, did you have a bit of struggle between jobs, like, in terms of adapting styles? Like,
yeah, I mean, it was definitely more like fun. Like, there are some things just experimenting, but some of the shows I was on were pretty simple, and I was given a lot of reference, or like follow this exact style. So it was just time and copying and figuring it out. This is just kind of like paint as realistic as you can, basically. Because what I'm doing, like, so for example, if you have like a scene where you have like something where like they didn't spend as much time on the textures of like a corner of it or something, I basically will paint over that section of it to make it look more just like detailed and like painterly, and just like nicer and cleaner. And then what I'll do is I'll either like project onto like just like a card, which is just like you just put it right on top of the video basically, that you have, or you can like use a 3D camera to like project onto a 3D object, and it kind of wraps around. You can look it up. It's kind of it's a pretty cool process, and you can really fool the eye into like making a 2D piece of artwork look like it's 3D. It's also faster and cheaper than just building it out in 3D entirely. So you'll see it a lot in visual effects and animation and stuff. It's becoming more and more popular. But then there's a lot of like problem solving as well. So I'm gonna have to be doing a little bit of like stylistic development, and how will the textures work with this, and what will the painting style be. And so I'm really excited to dive more into it. Like I said, I've only been at it for like a month so far, and I've learned a lot already. They're very helpful, and it's a junior position. So any junior position, it's like they're gonna teach you things. So it's a great place to start for sure.
So are you guys diverging from the style of Clone Wars, or is it still similar? I haven't seen the trailer
it looks
yet.
pretty much it's the same. Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So at least you have like inspiration or reference or something.
Yeah, I think they're trying to make it look better.
Sure.
Overall. Like they're always trying to improve, but yeah, in the trailer, it looks pretty similar to the last season of Clone Wars.
Gotcha. Interesting. So we have a question really quick. Jaeger Demand says, this is more just general. Do you have any advice for people who want to get into VFX/animation?
Ooh, let's see. So some of my most general advice is, like we were kind of talking about earlier, like you'll want to, you'll probably want to concentrate in some sort of specialization, whether it's, there are a million things you can do. You can do rigging, texturing, matte painting, 3D modeling, effects. Like you can just make explosions if you want.
Yeah.
Or like just do fur or like water. Like it gets really complicated in some of the 3D stuff. And or you can even just do like programming. There's a lot of really technical things that I don't even understand exactly what they do. But yeah, just choosing ultimately doing what you like to do, learning from, if you see something that you like that someone else is doing, like learn more about it, try it out yourself, like do a lot of experimenting, and eventually you'll just find yourself, just doing what you like. And my kind of like, one of my number one advices is like, the more, if you're doing something that you really love and are passionate about, the work will be better. And, you don't even have to think about like trying to make it good, because if you enjoy it, like it's automatically going to have a lot more heart to it. And, you're going to put more into it.
Yeah, your passion will show through your portfolio.
Yeah, and even if you don't succeed at first, if you don't find a job after college or an internship, there are a lot of really amazing like online programs that you can do, where because it's like a lot of schools, they won't teach you some of this stuff because it's just too much to learn. It's too specialized. So there are a lot of really great schools that you can just go to online if you just want to learn more about the VFX like compositing pipeline, or more about I don't know, like drawing characters in animation and stuff like that. What are they called? I'm blanking on some of the names of them, but there's one based out of LA for kind of like concept art, called the Concept Art Academy. And I took a class there like in real life, but it's all, you know, online right now. So they do like storyboarding classes and concept art, like color and light, like painting, figure drawing, stuff like that. And there are a lot of other schools like that. There's CG Masters Academy. There's another one, I'm blanking on the name, but it's more like VFX focused, and you can just look up like VFX online school and look through and see what the best ratings are, you know. It's less expensive than college.
Yeah.
And, you know, just keep going until, you know, until you get something, because you know, it's a huge industry. It is growing. There's room for a lot of people, even though it is competitive.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, because I can imagine it. I mean, I even through certain periods of my career got a little bit demoralized, having applied to 1,000,001 studios and then not hearing back from any of them. And it is one of those things where you kind of just have to go with the flow and shift as you continue on. And that's actually one of the questions from Superfly Jonesy. Says, do you have a choice though, like in what you end up doing, and can you switch? So I mean, I would imagine you're applying for a certain role, but there could be an opportunity where they're like, hey, I know that you can do this. We're going to have you do this other thing, or, you know, whatever.
Yes, absolutely. You should not have to be stuck in any choice you make when you're 20, 18, 30, you know, it's like that. And that goes for literally anything. I mean, when I was coordinating, it's like, you know, that was a production job. I knew I didn't want to do that forever. I considered it, but you know, I voiced that, you know, I'm more of an artist, and if, you know, you guys have more like art or background art related things, I would love to try it. And especially like at smaller studios, you'll have a lot of better luck to kind of switch around and kind of wear multiple hats, as, you know, that's usually what I hear the saying is. But also I have heard like bigger studios too, you can, I know someone who went to my school. He started out doing like VFX, like matte painting, just like the more photorealistic, just like backgrounds, like really amazing stuff. But his heart really wasn't totally in it after a few years, and he was like, you know, I just want to do rigging, and so he got into rigging. And, you know, just did personal projects, really push it. You know, if you want something, you know, put the time into it, do a lot of learning, learn from other people, learn from yourself, and just experiment. I think having like doing personal projects, like even like really small goals, like, you know, for example, I don't know, like make a jellyfish rig or something, or, you know, do, you know, one small painting study per day. Anything that is I think setting really small goals instead of, you know, I want to do like this whole short film by myself, or like I want, you know, just small goals that are realistic, because, you know, otherwise you're going to burn yourself out. And the more you take on, the more spread out you'll be, spread thin. So yeah. Just little things, like, for example, like in April, like that was kind of, you know, I didn't have a whole lot of work to do from home, and, you know, it was just like COVID, couldn't go anywhere. So I decided to participate in like a challenge where I like did like a painting study every single day for the month of April. And like, I got so much better just within that month. I learned so much just from doing those studies.
That's awesome. That's something that I keep telling my community as well. We have a study challenge and also a monthly challenge, and so now it's coming from another mouth that's not mine, so it's good to hear.
It's great, and it's fun too. I mean, it's, you know, sometimes it can be like tedious, or you know, if you're not interested in the subject, but make it interesting. You know, add some vibrant colors or something. I did like the last one I did these little like coaster things.
Oh,
that's cool.
And
I was going to ask you about that.
Hours like per day on them, and I traded some away, but basically I didn't do that many. I did maybe like 8 or 9 or something, but even just like within a month, it was like a little goal to just complete. It was this very tiny little thing, you know, and it still helps. And
Is
if
that
you want to
from
switch or learn something by yourself, that's a great thing to do. It's little goals.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, was that part of the digital warrior painters? Because I have looked
Yeah.
at the course and yeah, I just see these beautiful small paintings. And is it all right if we get a closer look? Because they look
Oh
really
yeah,
beautiful.
sure.
Yeah,
This one
yeah.
wasn't part. This one I went to the park the other day.
Oh, lovely.
Nice.
Yeah,
I don't
really
like it that
nice.
much. But yeah, here's Griffith Park.
Really nice,
Nice.
And this was the first one I did.
Yes.
Yeah, they're just small and it's manageable, and because they're so small and just on these little wooden little things, it's like you don't care really how they turn out really because it's so small and minute. It's not like you're spending months on something. So it's just doing it just to learn, just to study from the world around you. How the colors interact, and it's a good practice.
I think one of the biggest holdups I see from some younger artists that are maybe struggling a little bit is just the process of like doing. And you definitely seem like a prime example, especially looking at your website of just like dabbling into just being into it all the time. And I guess what I want to ask is like, is there something that you specifically do to keep yourself motivated to continue doing art, or do you have these down periods of just being like, oh man, I'm forcing myself to do this right now? Or are you just like always into it?
So it's sad to say, but most of the time I really have to make myself do it.
Okay.
Especially during COVID, it's like you don't talk to anyone really. It's like it's hard to be inspired right now, and just in general, which is sad to say. But I mean, the challenge I just showed you with the mini paintings, that was really helpful because like Oliver, like everyone else was doing it, and it was so beautiful. And it was like, oh, I want to do that too. I want to like participate and learn something from these people and be a part of something. So that really helped me kind of like stay on track for sure. But yeah, sometimes it's just something. So one of my kind of like New Year's resolutions, I think, for this year. This fall, I took on too many freelance and side projects that I still am finishing up.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I'm not going to take on any more new things just from other. Well, I have like I have like one project that I might work on from like one of my college advisors. But that would be more of like a fun experimental thing.
Sure.
It'd be like lighting in Unreal Engine, which I want to learn anyway. But I just want to do personal projects the rest of the time because I think I'll go back to this. Sometimes like you do get burnt out if your full-time job is like art.
Yeah.
And so kind of like art was always a sanctuary to me growing up. If I was having a tough time, that's what was there for me. And that was what I loved doing more than anything. And the second it kind of becomes, marketable or, kind of monetize, it kind of takes away that passion and joy a little bit.
Yeah.
Which, not to scare anyone, but you do have to watch out for it. So my goal for this year is to like do more just personal work where it's like, I don't care who likes it on Instagram, or I'm not trying to build it for my portfolio. It's just for me. And, that's what these paintings were for. I mean, I just did it because they were fun.
Yeah.
More than anything. And I think it's really important. And not only if you do it for fun, again, it will still be good. You're still working on your skills. It's still good for your portfolio. But if you think about it just in terms of what you love to do and what you're passionate about, or even learning something new, like it's, I think that's really important just to keep that, if that's what art means to you.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's very important to be doing as well. All right, let me just read through the comments really quick. Yeah, Superfly Jonesy, based on what we were talking about earlier, just said really quick, sounds like trial and error to really find out what you really like. I think
it takes time.
Yeah. I think instinctively too, you kind of like, as soon as you start something, you already kind of have a feeling of like if this is for you or not. And just really, I think it's important to kind of trust yourself and not to do things just to do them. I think that's the best way to find out what path you really want to take. And I think that changes, over time as well. Let's see how. Okay. Man. So somebody just asked, how different/difficult is the transition from traditional sketching to digital art? I think it's kind of a loaded question a little bit. But Yeah, was there a certain point in your career where, were you, I guess this is a question bouncing off of this, is like, did you do any 3D before you got into college, or did you kind of go in blind with that?
So in terms of digital, I'll go into 3D after, but digital art, I did start early because I was like a big nerd, in like middle school. So I did end up with like the cheapest little Wacom
Yeah.
tablet. So, I would like draw with like on like these weird forum sites, just like anime and like fantasy and stuff.
Nice.
So, but it definitely, I think it's hard. It definitely helps to take classes or just watch demos, because there are a lot of hotkeys and layers that are very different from traditional art. And just like learning the tools and the tricks, it takes time, but it's worth it. It really speeds up the process, and you can really find a lot of good in the whole digital art process. But yeah, it is different and it takes time, but just don't give up on yourself. If you don't get it immediately, it's a lot to learn. It's a lot to take in. So just keep working at it. 3D, 3D is hard. I took like one class, like at the end of high school, because, I wanted to dabble in it just to see if I liked it. And, it's hard for sure. Definitely. You can absolutely learn 3D on your own just by watching YouTube videos. It's out there. It does help to take classes, but I think you can totally do it without schooling. But it is hard. It takes a very long time because there's so many tools, and plus translating like 2D into like a 3D mind space, like thinking about vertices. It's way more like mathy and perfect,
I think what's so difficult about jumping into 3D as well, and I know it's one of those things too, because I have some 3D background, but not nearly as much as either you or Oliver. But once you kind of understand the basics, you can sort of transition them to other applications. But I just feel like there's so many different ways of going about it compared to digital painting, where at the end of the day, you're more or less just painting as you would traditionally. Whereas there's different ways to light stuff and to skin stuff and to, do all of this kind of stuff. So that would be my other question too, is especially when applying to some of these more AAA studios, like, are there certain applications that you recommend somebody should really, really know? Or is it one of those things where you just have to know your basics and you're going to be expected to learn something new no matter what?
Yeah, I think it depends what job. I'm assuming you're talking about more like concept art sort of things.
I'm talking more about the 3D applications, like in Lucasfilm. Like, what are you using, like Maya, or like what are you using some proprietary software that you kind of had to learn?
Oh, okay,
when
yeah, I
you were
see.
there?
So, definitely. Again, you just said this very well. The skills, once you learn some of the basics, like you can learn any software. It's not about the software. It's about just the basic skills. Like, can you model something? Do you know how UV texturing works? Like, how rendering works, like kind of some, learning about like the science behind like rendering is pretty cool. It depends what you're doing really, because
Sure.
There's so much to 3D. Right now, I'm using like Maya Arnold, like Nuke is and Photoshop is my main tool. But different places, there are a lot of changes going on in a bunch of studios, so it's like you never know what you're going to be using. It's like you could be switching to Katana or Blender or Mari. There are all these programs. Unreal Engine. There are a lot of places like through, like even Disney, they're experimenting with like Unreal Engine and like real-time rendering. So I would say like if you go to school and you're a student, you're able to use Maya for free. For like a few years, they let you do that. Definitely do Maya because it is the industry standard. But if you're not a student, if you're just on your own, like Blender is getting more and more popular. It's a really fabulous tool. They have everything in there. They have sculpting and they have the real-time stuff and they have compositing. They're going to be getting nodes soon. And for like VFX and stuff. And Houdini is pretty cool to learn too if you're more into like effects sort of thing. But whatever you can get your hands on, really. Ultimately, it's all about the skills.
Gotcha.
And then you can switch over to the program for sure.
Awesome. All right, we have another good question from Jaeger to Man. What is your favorite animated movie or show?
Oh no! Oh god, I have so many. Just it changes all the time. More recently, Into the Spider-Verse
awesome.
was so good. I saw it in theaters, and my mentor worked on it from Women in Animation, and
Nice.
I was just so cheesing the whole time.
That's
Because
really cool.
I love the style. You know, they really experimented with the style, and I went to some talks at SIGGRAPH of how they like, you know, made some of these procedural textures to like make the beautiful like windows in the city buildings and stuff. As a kid, my favorite was probably Wallace and Gromit, and like the moon that's made of cheese. I have a tattoo that's of that because it is just so charming and so funny and cute. Yeah,
that's really cool. All right.
It's a very British TV show, Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah, all-time favorite.
This is actually an interesting question, and I'd like to hear what you think about this, because I think I have my own opinions on this. The Superfly Jonesy says, should you use your own name when starting out, or should you use your username?
Like if you're applying to jobs, or just like your Instagram handle, maybe?
I think they're talking about, when you're kind of like trying to... Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to use your own name when you're applying for jobs.
Yeah.
But I guess more of the question is just like, should you be promoting like your more stage name, your username, or do you think it's more important to promote your own name?
I think it depends what you're trying to do. If you're trying to do more freelance and get really big on social media, like a lot of these people, they do have like their usernames that they use. But ultimately, I don't think it matters so much, to be honest. If you're just trying to work. Because it's like your work will get out there, and I don't really have a good answer to that. I use my own name. I do like, so I kind of have like, I use my middle name instead of my last name, like on my website and stuff, just because I like it better, and that's the only reason.
Gotcha.
But ultimately, when you're applying to jobs, you obviously have your full name on there. But I think just like not switching your username around a whole lot, because then it's like people will remember who you are.
Yeah, consistency and staying memorable in some way, I think is super important, especially like we were talking about before with making first impressions. I think that kind of has a lot to do with that. So
yeah, but then you do see a lot of like really famous artists on like Instagram or YouTube that it's like you only know them by their username. You don't even know what their real name is.
Yeah.
And obviously, like it works for them, so it depends on what your goal is.
For sure. Yeah. Awesome. All right, cool. So we're pretty much at the hour mark. Is there any place you want to refer people to go to find you? Would you do you want people to check you out on Instagram, your website?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on Instagram.
Okay.
So it's Kyra Anastasia art. My profile picture is a cat.
Okay. Yeah, we'll share that in the description. Cool.
Yeah. But if anyone has questions, feel free to just like DM me or something.
Awesome.
I'd be happy to chat more or look at your stuff or something.
Awesome. And people should check out and the show's going to be on Disney Plus, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And it's Bad Batch?
Yeah.
Bad Batch. So everybody look forward to Bad Batch and seeing some of Kyra's work in the show. But thank you so much for joining us, Kyra. This has been a really awesome talk. Hopefully some people out there are feeling pretty inspired right now, because I think you've done a lot of cool stuff in a short amount of time, like I said. And
it's been fun. I mean, I mean, I hope everyone just enjoys what they do, and I hope you get in the industry and just make friends, make connections, be nice to each other, because being nice to one another is just as important as the quality of your artwork.
For sure. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and awesome. Thanks for having me. It's been great to chat.
Yeah. This has been so much fun.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Perfect.